Welcome to Your City Connections, where you get to meet entertaining and informative guests. Guests such as an artist with a brush or with a camera, and guests with a violin. City Connections, providing insightful interviews with favorite son Lieutenant Governor Todd Lamb. To city commissioners, the mayor. Interviews with a rodeo queen, to beauty queen, and even a NBA player. Now, join Steve Keim as he discusses another engaging topic on City Connections.
Welcome to City Connections. You know, in my many years that I've had the opportunity to do a variety of interviews, this is number one. This is very special. I could go into this long list of accolades about my special guest today, but I want you to be able to hear her story. And our special guest on City Connections is Marion Blumenthal Lazan. And I've gotten to know Marion just recently, and I just appreciate her taking time to come to the Enid Television Network studio. So again, welcome. It's good to have you. Welcome to Enid, Oklahoma. And speaking of Enid, Oklahoma, what brought you to the community? I understand there's a student that may have reached out to you. Tell us the story, if you would, Marion.
I'm here because of a young lady by the name of Jaylee Downard from the Chisholm Middle School.
That's right.
She read for Perfect Pebbles, which was made available in her school a number of months ago, maybe a year ago. And she, and I believe a couple of her friends, approached the principal, Mrs. Semensky, Crystal Semensky, who, by the way, coordinated our visit here,
Right.
and asked whether there's a possibility that they could bring me in so that I could speak to and with the students of the community. And in the interim, though, Jalen emailed us, we emailed her back, and the connection was made. And here we are. And through the efforts of Mrs. Semensky, who really coordinated our visit and was tremendously efficient and conscientious. So we're grateful to Jaylee Downard for giving me this opportunity.
Well, that's a great
Yeah.
story on how you get to Enid, Oklahoma, because people say,
That's right.
how do you get to Enid, Oklahoma?
Well, we've been in Oklahoma City a number of years ago,
Okay.
in 1999,
Okay.
and then several times thereafter. And I just knew that I would be back in Oklahoma sooner or later. So here we are.
Very good. Well, I'll be on the lookout for you, because if I hear you coming back to Oklahoma City or the Tulsa area, I said, I know her. I've got to go check on her. I've had the opportunity to hear your story, or part of your story, Marion, and it's very powerful. And let me just begin our interview. This happened quite some time ago, but why do you tell your story today?
It is of utmost importance to share the story today while there is still time. Today's generation is the very last generation that'll hear these stories firsthand and have their questions answered, but above all, made to understand the lessons learned of this dark period of our history. Simply to be kind and good and respectful towards one another, that is definitely the basis for peace. Had there been respect and tolerance towards one another some 70 years ago, you and I would not be talking about that dark period of our history. And 9/11 would not have happened. Libya, Iraq, Syria, North Korea, all these countries that are in such turmoil would be peaceful for its people. So there is so much to be learned from this dark period of our history. And that works right in with character education. And that's something we all need. So I'm always very grateful that I'm given the opportunity to speak to and with audiences of all ages, but particularly our young ones, middle school, high school, university school students. Sure. And it needs to be done now. So it's become a mission. And Nathaniel, my husband of almost 63 years, and I will just run as fast as we can as long as we're able. And it's a lot of schlepping, let me tell you. Okay.
Well, it's amazing how fast the calendar goes. I was talking with Nathaniel earlier today, and I made the comment about my dad served in World War II, but he's no longer with us. He's passed away. And I mentioned to your husband that as quickly as time goes, there will be people that don't remember the 40s, that will maybe not recall certain events of World War II and things of this nature. And it's just amazing how quickly time goes, and if we're not doing anything to preserve that information, it's really challenging. I want to look at my notes from time to time, Marian, because I definitely want to get it right for our audience. And in one of your talks that I've noticed that you have out on the internet, you said that your talk is one of perseverance, determination, faith, and hope. So if those were kind of 4 key themes, what's the main lesson that you want people to take away when you speak at a school assembly or to a group of adults? Yes, it's about determination and faith and hope and perseverance. When they walk out the door, what do you want them to take with them?
First of all, to make them understand and pass along that the Holocaust did happen. We all know that there are people out there who have their own agenda.
Sure.
And deny that the Holocaust has happened. The audience that hear this firsthand know that it has. That's number one. Number two, and you'll hear me say this over and over again, simply to be respectful, kind, and tolerant towards one another. That's it. That is definitely the basis for peace. So, and we have to clean up our own little corner first, one by one by one. And it's as simple as that.
My special guest today on City Connections is Marion Blumenthal Lazan. And you can go to, let me look, make sure I get this right, forperfectpebbles.com. And you can find out a lot of things about Marion, but that kind of leads in. We'll talk about her book a little bit more, and you can see a picture of the cover of her book right now. But it's forperfectpebbles.com if you want to find out more about what we're talking about and what the mission, as Marion had referred to. Now, Marion, I know that you speak to big people, adults, and students all the time. You travel internationally to do so. Are students your favorite audience? Or maybe you should tell me who is your favorite audience.
Actually, audiences of all ages. It works beautifully well from ages 5th grade on up, university students, adult members of the community, and it's a human interest story. And somehow, audiences of all ages identify. Either they identify with me as a child, my 2-year older brother, or my parents, particularly my courageous and enormously wonderful mother, who passed away 3 years ago.
Excuse me, let me interrupt, but you've got a picture of Mom.
I sure do.
So why don't you share that?
I don't know how to do so.
You're fine like that. And
this is my mother on her 104th birthday. Nathaniel took this photo, and it is not photoshopped or whatever that's called. And she had 104.
Yeah.
And Mom passed away 6 weeks short of her 105th birthday.
Wow.
An amazing, amazing lady. Tremendous inner strength and fortitude. And there's no doubt that I survived because of her attitude towards life. And
well, later on in our interview, we want to talk about the importance of your mother and your brother and father and just how to cope. And one of the things that you said in the assembly that I heard to help you cope with at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, in these conditions, you played some imagination games. I think we've all been involved in imagination games, that we were a fireman or something, but you had imagination games to cope. To kind of get through each day. And can you tell us a little bit about those games? I think that leads into your book, and we'll talk more about your book in a little bit, but explain to us, what is she talking about?
The title of the book is For Perfect Pebbles, F-O-U-R spelled out, and that's, of course, the website as well. And it's based on one particular, I played various games, but this one is based on one particular game. A game of superstition. I decided for myself that if I were to find 4 pebbles of about the same size and shape, that would mean that the 4 members of my family would all survive. My mother, my father, my brother, and I. It was a very difficult game to play. What if I couldn't find the 3rd or 4th pebble? Might that mean that 1 or 2 of my family members would not pull through? Nevertheless, this game gave me something to hold on to, some distant hope. And I played other imaginative games. We had nothing to occupy our time with constructively, no books, no pencil, no paper, certainly no games. And here I was only 9 and 10 years old, and there was nothing to keep me busy. So I made up these games. And these games were my survival techniques. They were my survival skills.
Sure.
Do you know that we all have survival skills and techniques within us? When the need arises, we just have to search for them, find them, and be sure that we put them to work. Because no one is spared adversity. No one is spared hardship. We all have to overcome obstacles at one time or another. But with perseverance, determination, faith, and above all hope, one can overcome just about anything and everything.
And hope is that very important 4-letter word.
Bet.
That's very important.
You bet.
Is there any way that you could share with our television audience, Marion, I don't even want to say a typical day, that would make light of it, but can you just kind of share a day when you were 7, 8 years old in one of these camps? You said there's no book, there's no pen, but I mean, all you have is yourself and your mind for these imagination games. Can you kind of share with us when you had to get up, when you had to do this and whatever? Can you kind of give us just a glimpse? Because I really want people to take away.
On a daily basis, we first of all, we got up and there was nothing to eat.
Sure.
Once a day, they would give us a piece of bread and some hot, watery soup with grizzly meat, turnips, and potato peel. But in the mornings, we first had to line up on a huge field. It was called an Appellplatz. We had to stand 5 in a row as we were counted, which also was a ridiculous thing because people died all the time. There was no way that they could keep track of our numbers, of the numbers. And we would have to stand there sometimes all day without food, without water, no matter what the weather, without protective clothing. And frostbite was common, and we would treat our affected toes and fingers with the warmth of our own urine. That's all we had to treat frostbites. And the days was just squandered away. We just had nothing to do. For children, that was nothing but boredom and fear, always afraid of what would happen to us next, afraid of who would die next. Would my mother come back from her work duties? As far as I'm concerned, fear was the worst emotion to deal with. And
fear of the unknown, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose that's what it is. And
well, thank you for your openness. I don't mean to pry, I guess is the word, but this is an interview, and I just know people want to know, and they will admire you and others so much more when they hear stories like that. And I want to encourage you that even though Marion is in Enid, Oklahoma this week speaking to a variety of groups, that whenever you hear that she is speaking in Oklahoma, whichever state, in New York, wherever she's at, I encourage you to make it a priority to take time to visit her website, but also to hear her story in person. Well, Marion, we're going to take a short break, and we'll come back and we want to talk about 4 Perfect Pebbles in book form, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a few moments. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to City Connections. My special guest today, Marion Blumenthal Lazan. Marion, 4 Perfect Pebbles is in its 28th printing. We have a copy of it here in the studio to my left. How did the 4 Perfect Pebbles come into book form? You mentioned your imagination game of the 4 Perfect Pebbles, but how did it become in book form like this?
Okay, Lila Pearl, the co-author of the book, heard me speak in the early 1990s.
Okay.
And this was with a group of middle school students. And she saw, and they were all sitting on the floor for an hour. She saw the reaction of the students after hearing the story, and she came over to me and she says, Marian, the story needs to be put into book form. Will you help me to do so? So, with the assistance of my mother and my brother, because much I do not remember before the age of 4 or 5, and the manuscript was completed and was accepted almost immediately. I think there were 1 or 2 rejections, and after it was accepted, very few books from a child's perspective that's nonfiction pertaining to the subject. And Lila Pearl, on her way home from the presentation that she heard, she already formulated the chapters.
How about that?
She already knew the title of the book from the way the story was told. And she actually went back to Germany, to this farm village where we were liberated, to just research on some of the archival parts of the story.
Sure.
And she needed to know that it was correct. And mine was her 50th book that was published for young adults. And that's just a little side story. Her brother, Martin Pearl, won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1995.
Wow.
So quite an amazing family.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Marian, in my research, it says that the For Perfect Pebbles is printed in Dutch, German, and Japanese, and also Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think the message is so well received?
I just think it's very well written. It's a story that most people
You can
will
brag
identify
about yourself.
with
It's
it.
okay.
That they sort of identify, and it's and again, there are very few from a child's perspective that's nonfiction. There are historical fiction pertaining to the subject, but very few from a child's perspective, and that's nonfiction. So Yad Vashem in Jerusalem just published it in Hebrew, and it was initially published 20 years ago last month, 1996, and still in hardback, paperback, Scholastic Book Club, and in fact HarperCollins, who is printing it, continued to print it, is doing a 20th anniversary edition now, in the process of doing so.
That's very impressive, and 28th printing is very
well,
impressive.
I'm just grateful that the story is out there, and so that it can be continued on for future generations.
The story in the
and
book
that's
can
what's
live on.
important. Yeah.
Well, a lot of folks get streets named after them, maybe libraries and a variety of things. You get a high school named after you. That's impressive. And it's in Germany.
Yes.
That's even more impressive. Tell us about
And
it.
it's amazing because this high school was named in my former hometown in my honor. First they threw us out, and now they're naming a high school in my honor, which is amazing. And this was done in 2010, November 2010. And what is even more remarkable is that this little town, and it is a little town of Hoya near Hanover, that they redress what happened so many years ago in their midst. And I speak in schools there, universities and churches. I do so in German, and very, extremely well received. Audiences of all ages there as well, but also difficult for the young people to hear. After all, it happened in their country by their own people, their grandparents' and great-grandparents' generation. It's a huge, huge burden for these young people, and unfortunately, it will be their burden for generations to come.
I think they have to admire you with your openness and willingness to come back and to share with them those stories. They have to just say, special woman to be able to do that and come back.
But there's a special young couple born after the war Heike and Hans Huth, who reconnected me, my family, with our former hometown. And they're remarkable, remarkable people. When we first returned back in 1995, they took us to the Jewish cemetery, which was in terrible disarray, had not been cared for since 1938. And they took us to our family plot. And there, among the toppled over stones, was a brand new shiny granite footstone with the inscription, zur Erinnerung an die zerstörte Grabstelle der Familie Blumenthal, Hoja 1894 bis 1938. I'll translate.
Please.
In memory of the desecrated plot of the Blumenthal family, Hoya 1894 to 1938, placed there by this non-Jewish young couple, unbeknownst to us, a most generous, beautiful, kind gesture. And believe me, I never thought that I would refer to non-Jewish Germans in such glowing terms.
Sure.
It's people like these that renew one's faith in humanity, and they become wonderful, dear friends of ours. Actually shared my mom's 100th birthday celebration. Now, no one in their right mind will travel from Europe to New York for 4 days in February to sightsee.
Not in
right?
February.
Not in February. Amazing, amazing people, remarkable people, yeah.
Speaking of remarkable, you had spoken at a high school presentation, and I want to read the testimony that that Marion received from one of, and this was on your site, I believe. So it said, Marion, your heartfelt sincerity and flawless presentation made it a memorable experience for students and the staff alike. As a social studies teacher, we strive to help our students understand the past and make relevant connections to the present. Your presentation achieved these goals with an authenticity that is often hard to replicate in the classroom. And so my question to you is that, does this confirm you're on the right track when you receive a testimony from an educator to say that you were able to successfully bring the past but connect it to the present? You got to know you're on the right track.
Tremendously, tremendously gratifying to get reviews and to get emails of this type. And that's what keeps us going. Alone, I couldn't do this without Nathaniel. He's a computer guy, you know. I don't do that computer business. So he's very, very good. And that's how one communicates today. I'm the phone person, he's a computer. So, but when we get responses of this type, then that's what keeps us going. There's no doubt about it. And we'll keep running as long as we're able.
Absolutely. Well, we want to do our part to share your story. That's why we appreciate you coming by the Enid Television studio today. We need to take a short break, and we'll come back with 2 or 3 final questions. Can you do that for us?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
Thank you for joining us on City Connections, and we'll be back right after this. Thank you for staying with us on City Connections today, and my very special guest, Marion Blumenthal Lazan. Marion, I understand that PBS has done a story. They've done a show. I'm not sure the quite documentary. I guess that's the word. Can you show us a little bit about that? And I'm sure, again, you can go to the 4perfectpebbles.com and be able to learn more about Marion. But probably you'll have some information about the. special.
This is the documentary entitled Marion's Triumph, with the actress Deborah Messing as the narrator. And this was produced by a John Shua, who he contacted us, and I contacted me and wanted to know whether this was permissible to do a documentary on it. He came to hear me in upstate New York with a whole crew, and then also came to our home and interviewed my mother and my brother. This is a
Sounds very complete.
The family, yes, yes, the family is involved in this. It goes beyond just sharing my story.
Sure.
And it also involves my brother's perspective and my mother's perspective. And it's extremely well done. It's entitled Marion's Triumph, and it's been shown over PBS stations throughout the country these past several years. And I'm very grateful that it's out there.
Sure.
And
Congratulations.
John Shua, has a doctorate. He teaches now in the UK, in England, and I spoke at his school a number of years ago when I spoke in the country.
Well, in our closing time together, I understand that you brought another item that that you wanted to share with our audiences, and I believe you shared this at your assembly recently. So, tell us about what you have in your hands.
Okay, this is the very star that I was forced to wear. It says Jude, which in German means Jew. It was just another way to denigrate us, to isolate us, and to set us apart from the rest of society. This, of course, represents the Star of David, which is a beautiful, meaningful Jewish symbol, but the Nazis made it so very ugly. And each of us, in our own way, must do everything possible to prevent such hatred, such destruction, and such terror from reoccurring. And again, we can begin by having love, respect, and tolerance towards one another. You'll hear me say that over and over and over again, regardless of the religious belief, color of our skin, or national origin. And this love and respect towards one another must begin in our homes, wherever we gather as a family.
How many speaking engagements do you have each year? Do you keep track?
We're always asked that, and Nathaniel, we got to keep check on this. I don't know, hundreds and hundreds. And I've spoken to upwards of 1 million students and adults over these past 20-some years. And we're really losing track. That it doesn't matter. And the more are in the audience, the better I like it. I've done 2,500 students at one time already in the Chicago area. So it needs to be shared. It needs to be shared. And I'm certainly so grateful that you have given me this opportunity. And I wish your listening audience and people everywhere a healthy, happy, productive future in a world of love and peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Our special guest today on City Connections here at the Enid Television Network, Marion Blumenthal Lazan. And I'm holding a copy of 4 Perfect Pebbles, a Holocaust story. And I encourage you to go to the website, 4perfectpebbles.com. And you can find out how to contact Marion, because I know that she'd like to share her story at your school or at your particular group. But we'll have that information on the screen for you to do so. Well, Marion, I know that you received keys to the city. You have received a proclamation from Mayor Bill Shuey in Enid, Oklahoma. I was reading some of your research material. You have received numerous accolades and awards for coming to particular cities. I don't have a key to the city, but I have a coin from the city of Enid, Oklahoma. And you'll see on one side it has a little star that kind of tells you where we're located in northwest Oklahoma. But you see the words of boundless, vibrant, and original. And those 3 words kind of frame in what Enid, Oklahoma, the people are all about. But I can see your vibrance and your boundless, and you're all part of those 3 words as well. Very much original. So that's our way of saying thank you for your time today to come to the Enid Television Network and visit with me. This is truly an honor, and I just wish you the very best. And if I can help in any way, you know how to reach me, and you can count on us to help you out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Blessings to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us on City Connections. And you can see the guests just keep coming, and they're just more special as the weeks go by. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, make it a great day.